Hello, and welcome to episode 4 of Concepts of a Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about friendship. And I want to say the foundation of this episode, or the foundation of at least how I approach friendship, is the idea that, friendship is about accepting the other person for who they are. I want to talk about how friendship's presented in different media, like some of my favorite shows. Maybe I'll go into a little about the different perspectives on friendship, like men versus women. What else do I have? Maybe some cross cultural, not look at friends in discussion. So, for starters, uh, friendship in media is really interesting to look at because some of my favorite shows have a really good way of depicting friendships. Just throwing out ideas. Favorite shows now, like Hunter x Hunter. There's a really good depiction of friendship in that. Broad City, Haganai. If you're familiar with those shows, you may have some idea what I mean, but I can go into more detail. Any shows you want to point out, Cowboy? Or
Cowboy Bebop.
Cowboy? Okay. You would say there's depictions of friendship in Cowboy Bebop crew?
Well, in Cowboy Bebop, yes.
Oh, Cowboy, yes. Okay. Go into that a little bit more. I never thought of that as an example, but yeah.
Because basically Cowboy Bebop is kind of like almost like a show about nothing, but basically like the main like meat of the show is basically the relationships between the four characters of the show. It's like basically two older men, a young woman, and like a girl essentially, and like essentially a dog. I guess if you want to add the fifth character, I guess. But basically, it's about the relationships that they form by being on the same ship and kind of like they kind of form them. I'd say almost passively, and then by the end of the show, you see how like connected they all are and how they feel about like basically disconnecting. Spoiler alert. Um, to various extents at the end of the show.
Interesting. I maybe it's just been so long since I've seen Cowboy Bebop. But I guess yeah, that kind of makes sense. Cause I think you may have even described the first couple episodes. Like the first 5 episodes are kind of like not really filler, but there's no huge plot progression or points.
Yeah, the
Um,
the fifth episode has the first major plot point, and then the first basically every episode is kind of like almost independent of the next. And I think that's
yeah,
one of the things of like Cowboy Bebop. I'd almost relate it to like almost like Seinfeld, where it's like it's really kind of like just random episodes. You know what I mean?
yeah,
But then like the thing is, Cowboy Bebop has certain plot points at certain episodes where you're like, oh, I see where this could be going, or it's developing certain characters at different points. But
yeah. It's like a little, almost like a little slice segment of their overall lives, which is interesting to see.
yeah, but honestly, I'd
Yeah,
probably throw most anime in that whole talks about friendship. I feel like pretty much a good majority of them talk about it to some extent.
yeah. So there's animes that every or a lot of animes, there's some kind of like commentary in the show about friendship,
Yep.
but the ones that stand out to me are ones that do it well, basically.
Yeah. Because
Um,
all of them are like friendship is magic. Oh, the power of friendship.
yeah,
Like
like that. What is friendship magic from? What is that from?
I don't know. I don't know if that's from My Little Ponies or something. I
Okay,
don't.
that might be My Little Pony.
It might
Actually,
be.
that's funny. Yeah, I actually did enjoy how the characters interacted in My Little Pony. I was like, yeah, that was an interesting show. It's yeah. Um, well, the first show I mentioned, Haganai. Um, Warning, it's a mature rated show, so like, don't go into it like if you got kids, don't watch it with your kids. Like, it's rated M for mature, even though it's about high school kids. But yeah, it's rated M for mature. I'll start with that. But it's about a group of kids in high school who start like a friendship club. And the funniest thing about it is they start a friendship club and they can't consider each other like fellow club members. They don't really consider each other friends, even though like it's like they're naive to the idea that they actually are friends. But it's a club about learning how to make friends. And it's funny because they're just like, okay, well, they'll say things like, okay, when we go out to make friends on our own, Like we need to practice what to do. Like, and it's like it's like friends like to, I don't know, go to the beach together and hang out, and it's like you guys are just being friends. Like it's kind of funny to think about. It's like it's almost like they don't realize or they're oblivious to the fact that they're actually just being friends. So
Yeah.
that it's kind of funny. Yeah.
Actually, now that I think about it, I feel like I kind of understand why animes kind of like have that element of like friendship as part of it. But anyway, we'll talk about that maybe at a later point. But
Okay. We can go into it now. I mean, because that'll probably
honestly,
yeah.
part of me wants to say that. I mean, again, if you're Japanese, correct me if I'm wrong. This is just based on my experiences of going there and like watching a lot of anime and like kind of understanding certain elements of Japanese culture. But I think it's possibly because I feel like maybe a lot of people might feel that they're socially isolated more in Japan. That people don't have like kind of like like in the U.S. where people will have like random conversations, just even if it's like a hey, how are you, or a, hey, like sorry, or whatever. They might have like just little tiny interactions between each other, a little like small talk between each other from time to time. You know what I mean? With people you work with or whatever. Like in Japan, it's like people kind of like move, and don't get me wrong, like they're super polite and everything, but like there's typically not that small talk. Typically, like the strangers you see in like a train station, you don't interact with. The strangers like you see like walking throughout the city, you don't interact with. Like even if it seems like you're at a bar, it's not like people are interacting with other people at the bar. It's kind of like they come with a group and they kind of stick to their group and then they leave with by themselves or leave with their group. It's not really a lot of like cross mixing of people. So I could get the sense of like loneliness. And then of course, like I've also seen things about like dating in Japan can be kind of difficult. You know what I mean? Or like how the culture is, it can be kind of difficult um, at times in different ways. So I'm like, maybe that is part of it. Is just like kind of like fostering this sense of like the importance of friendship and the importance of social connection and the importance of like I don't know, maybe sticking together. I don't know. That's
And
my personal interpretation, but
maybe it could be like, vicariously experiencing friendship through the animes they watch or the shows they watch and stuff like that.
maybe
Um, I feel like even in the U.S., people can relate to that feeling of being separated, anxiety, or not separated, the separation and the
social isolation.
isolation between people, especially when you start going into adulthood and stuff. Um, Past like even past definitely past college. College is kind of like that last, or maybe just my experience, but college is that last really fertile, simple ground for making friends. If that makes sense. Because when you go into like the workplace in the real world, you have to be very intentional about how you make friends. You have to actually make a concerted effort, and it actually kind of reminds me of this thought I've had a lot lately, where I think like, okay, so there was this book I read. I'm not gonna go into too much detail about it, but there was this book I read called The Life Council, where it kind of brought a different approach to looking at friendship and stuff. Where it was like, you have a life council, like a group of 10 different friend roles that you kind of fill instead of just having one single friend role. It was very interesting, but when I read that, it made me think like, you kind of got to go through like, I don't know, hundreds, maybe thousands of people just to fill those one roles, each role. And that's just life experience and exposure and just putting yourself out there and being intentional and seeing opportunities, being like, okay, this person, they seem really cool, maybe I should build on that. And yeah, just some of the other friendship stuff I've read, it talks about how like people will go to things like on Meetup, for example, that website. They'll go to events like yoga classes and cooking classes and art classes, thinking I'm going here to meet and make friends, right?
Yeah.
And, and this other book I read, they were talking about how, okay, people go there to do those things. They do those activities as a group, and then they don't take the time at the end of the session to stay and like make friends.
Yeah,
Like,
and like talk to people and get to know
yeah,
people. I think that's the thing is like I think people think like making friends is like a passive thing, and I think as
Yeah,
children, I think to a certain extent it is. I think a lot of it again as children is just like we're in a cohort, like we move forward with that cohort. It's grade school, middle school, high school, college, and then like you said, after college, like your cohort is gone, and basically you're into like almost like working cohorts, but your working cohort isn't as stable as the previous cohorts because people may
yeah,
get
it's really
hired or
random too.
fired, people may move on to other jobs, people may end up passing away. You know what I mean? Like that's just it's not as stable. You know what I mean? And I agree with you. Like it is difficult in adulthood making friends. Like you have to be very like very focused on how you're doing it. Because I've seen the same like Reddit posts and things like that where people are like, "Yeah, I went biking with this group of people, but like, I didn't make any friends." It's like because you weren't really like focused on the friend making part. You were focused on the biking. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Or like you were focused on the individual activity, and as soon as it was done, you kind of like moved on instead of like sticking behind and being like, "Hey guys, you want to like go get a beer?" or "Hey guys, you want to go and grab something to eat after this activity that we just did," and like get to know each other. You know what I mean? And also the other thing is it's hard to get to know each other because again, I feel like as kids, people are kind of a little bit young kids especially, people are a little bit more open to like making friends versus like as you get further and further along, some people are like, no, I got enough friends, I'm good. You know what I mean? Like not everybody's going to that activity, that meetup group to meet friends. You know what I mean? Some are just, hey,
yeah,
I just want to enjoy an activity or a hobby with other people, and some people are literally some people are there for like dating, some people are there for like making friends. It just everybody has their own agenda, and I think it's difficult sometimes to like align with certain people. I don't know.
yeah. And that kind of goes to what I started this with. Like, friendship is, or the root of relationships is about acceptance. Like when you're younger, you're just kind of, this is a person. You're accepting of, younger people are just accepting of people a lot more easily.
Yeah,
And when you get older, I really think that acceptance thing, like it for me, it really like makes a ton of sense because like if you can accept the person, you don't start weeding people out based on like, deal breakers or red flags as easily or as readily.
yeah,
Um, you just accept the person for who they are. And granted, red flags, deal breakers, that's understandable. That's still a thing you should factor in. But um, you like, for example, I think about the idea that people will say like, oh, like having things in common, that can be some people base friendship on just having things in common. And you could say have like video games in common with them. You both play video games. But like video games is such a huge field that like there may never be any overlap between you and another person, even though you both play video games like what religiously and like 8 hours a day. And you know,
yep.
even when I look at the different groups of people that I know that play video games, um, there's outside of Cowboy, there's really almost no one that plays a lot of the same games that I play. They may play one or two of them, but I mean, there's a lot of casual out there.
Wow. See, he
I'm
went
just
there, folks.
saying. That's some casual trash, but yeah,
Wow.
but yeah, I went there.
Some filthy casuals out there,
Yeah,
ruining the community.
yeah, but like it's just, I almost see it as like it's like I mean, this is kind of super privileged to say to have someone that you like just generally overlap on games with to play with is super rare. I mean, it's super nice. That's kind of like that. Maybe it's not 1,000 people. Maybe it's like a 10,000 people rule. You go through like 10,000 different people you meet online and play games with, and you maybe find that one. And yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And especially as adults, they have like overlapping schedules to be able to like continue to play games and
yeah,
stuff. It's pretty nice, not gonna lie.
yeah,
But yeah, I'm just like, I also find it interesting. I don't know if this is for the same thing for women, because again, I'm not a woman, so I have no clue. To be completely real with you, but it's interesting that like I feel like for a lot of men, I feel like part of the way that we initially connect is through activity. Honestly, I think it's either sports, games, music, movies. It's some kind of activity that we like share together, and then I think the relationship kind of like blossoms from there, but or it could be like working out, whatever activity it might be, like, but it kind of like progresses from there. Versus like for women, I honestly don't understand how they become. I'm assuming it's probably similar or the same, but honestly, I don't know because like
Yeah,
stereotypically, at least, their relationships are supposed to be like deeper or tighter knit than like men. And maybe
yeah.
it's because a lot of men focus on that superficial activity rather than focusing on the actual like depth of the friendship and the person. I don't know.
So there's a few things about the differences between the genders as far as friendship goes. Like, I mean, I'm a man, so I understand friendship from a male perspective, but a lot of the actual research and reading I've done has been about friendship for women. I actually don't even know if there's much research on friendship for men. There probably is. I haven't looked into it, but a lot of the stuff I've encountered and got me really interested in researching friendship and stuff has been made by women for women. I read it because I assumed there may be some translatability or some things I could pull from it, you know. But one of the things I read, it talked about for women. It talked about how women kind of like they go all in with emotional connections, and that like if two women are friends with each other, they're friends with each other in like every way, as opposed to like guys. It's like, oh, we're gamer friends. This is my sports basketball friends, and this is my we like kind of compartmentalize our relationships. And then when they have like with women, at least from what I've read, when they have a falling out in one connection, it kind of breaks all the connections they have with that person, and that's why like yeah. So like for men, it's like I guess shallow is the simplest way to put it, but um women like women I from the research it's like women don't they they have more friendship breakups because they have more connections with people. They connect with people more easily or easier more easily, yeah. So I don't know. Whereas guys were kind of like super shallow and yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of guys I know are just like, "I'll see you when I see you,"
Yeah.
um, and they don't
There's
really.
not a lot of
Oh,
there's especially not a lot of like intentionality among guys. Like, it's like if they find a connection, they'll make it, but there's not a lot of even myself, I can say it's a lot like effort put it into like fostering and building up the friendships and stuff. Because I've noticed even recently, I kind of try to like, I'm like, oh, you know what, I'm gonna try to, and I don't have so much time and energy, but I'm gonna try to build up and reestablish a lot of connections that fell off during grad school. And I'm like kind of going in and asking questions and trying to converse, and a lot of those conversations just end up dying or just kind of getting I wouldn't say dying because I could always like bring them up again, but the
stagnated.
communication dries up very quickly and easily.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I can see that, and I can
but
see that being like a double-edged sword for women as well. And like having that deep of a connection on like a lot of different things. I feel like it's a double edged sword. It's like yes, you have very very strong friendships, but then when they fall out, like that fallout's gonna be
there's a lot of ways it can fall out basically.
yeah, it's gonna be devastating. Or more devastating than like oh I just lost a video game friend or oh I just lost a
Yeah.
workout buddy. You know what I mean? Like yeah, it's gonna suck.
Yeah. Actually, there was something I was reading that talked about how um friendships this is something like from Aristotle. It is somewhere in the notes. I'm gonna briefly throw it out there. It's like friendship is something about friends. Okay, there's three components. They enjoy each other's company, they're useful to one another, and they share a common commitment to the good. The common commitment to the good, I don't remember what they said about it, but I think the usefulness to one another is what a lot of women will lean on, because they'll like go to friends and they don't have a problem with like I have this problem and helping each other. Whereas guys are kind of like it's if that's a problem they're interested in helping with, they will. But I don't know.
I think the one thing that Aristotle probably missed or maybe it just wasn't part of the culture, which I find interesting, is trolling. Because I
Oh
feel like
god.
there are certain things that you do. There's certain things like that people will say to their friends that they won't say to like other people, and like sometimes these things are horrible things. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And I just find that funny that it's like you wouldn't say that to a random, but you're gonna say that to the person that you like care the most about, which I find even with family. Like sometimes it'll be like, man, like I don't know, like
I think that where you're getting at it's like that's I think that's more rooted in like actual like intimacy between friends where you can you have that ability to like troll each other basically.
yeah,
Um yeah, I have read some stuff about that. I don't remember what I read, but like um there is that element there. And like building intimacy, that's definitely something guys kind of don't do at all. Like and I think women probably do that better. And that's why their friendship falling offs are harder because they built intimacy between each other and then like breaks and it's like a huge like
yeah,
thing. But guys don't really, I don't know. I've spent some time trying to like with pretty much all my, especially now I have like a various groups of friends that I hang out with, and I've tried like not I wouldn't say it was kind of successful I guess, but like I will intentionally be like, um, this is a moment where I recognize I should open up more and uh, be more intentional and basically build that intimacy, because it's a process, it takes time and time and intention basically.
pretty much.
Yeah.
And guys don't really put in that effort on average, guys don't really put in that,
Yeah.
which is hilarious,
It's
sad.
hilarious.
And the thing is, like, I feel like it feeds into this whole like, how do I explain this? Like, kind of like the incel manosphere movement, because I feel like guys feel like they're socially isolated and they're acting out in particular ways. But I feel like, I mean, part of that acting out is because we're socialized not to be social. I guess.
Yeah. It's yeah, there's a lot at play there. It's like there is that whole idea of the male loneliness epidemic,
Yeah.
which is like some people are just like, that's their problem. That's their problem. Like it's self-inflicted, that
Exactly. That's what I was about to say. I was like, literally self-inflicted. Like,
um yeah, it's I mean on a lot of levels it is self-inflicted. There's people, if they had been like more open-minded or more empathetic or whatever, they wouldn't have got cut off, or
yeah, or
they
they
kind of
would have
did it
maintained those
themselves.
connections.
Yeah, they would maintain those connections. um and they were just set in their ways, and it's just like I don't know. I feel like maybe if you have like a growth mindset, after if you don't have a growth mindset, you're gonna get into your 30s and 40s and 50s, and you're still gonna be a certain mind mentality, and it's just like you're gonna end up alone in a nursing home or something. I don't know, but
Damn.
I mean, I hear people. I've heard some people talk about stories like this. Like, yeah, like that guy's just like they like, especially on like TikTok and stuff. Some women will talk about like, yeah, um, like they work in nursing homes or they have parents or something, and they talk about how like their father, usually the father, just ends up, like lonely and no connections, and
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing. Maybe it kind of scares me on some level, but like I recognize I'm like, you know what? Um, that's where the intentionality comes in. You have to be intentional to maintain and develop new connections because over time that's all you have. That's all you're going to take into the future. Um, yeah, and if you don't do that, then yeah, you just end up lonely, like because your connections will just die over. they'll atrophy over time because you're not maintaining them, or
Yeah,
and
agree.
there, and there's also periods of your life where it's like you know, like I know, like when I was in grad school, I was kind of focused on grad school, so a lot of stuff did kind of, people wise, did kind of go by the wayside. And, I may go back to school. I still plan on going back to school in the future. So I'm trying to make the most of my free time, free time
Yeah.
now, and like just build up the connections to a certain level. And then you know they'll they can survive whatever time I'm away with school and stuff. So
Yeah. I mean, you wouldn't be completely away. I mean, you still have free time to like interact, but it's like you just wouldn't have as much.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah,
Yeah. But man.
but going back to how they're depicted in like media, I really I'm trying to think what is, I go back and forth about my favorite depiction of like best friends, especially. It's somewhere one, it's either Hunter x Hunter or Broad City. It's one of those two shows where like the depiction of best friends is just hilarious because like it's interesting, especially in Broad City, where if you I don't know if you've seen the show, then you know what I'm talking about. But like I think it's really interesting that like especially on rewatch, you see stuff that like the the characters will say like they'll say something happened, like I don't know. I'm trying to think of a hypothetical or random non spoilery example. They'll say like X happened, like I don't want to get locked in the bathroom again at a concert, and they'll be like, then they'll reference like it's like, well, that happened to you before. It's like that's that one time, like you know, they'll reference things like they have history, which is kind of interesting. So you can tell they have like history and rapport and stuff with each other, but they don't have to go into detail about it. It's just like kind of they feel like real characters. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Where they
it's
have
funny.
like banter and they have like they kind of bring things up. They're like, well, there was that one time. You're like, that only happened once. Like, come on, man. Like, let it go.
Yeah, let it go, let it go.
Like, come on,
Like,
man.
oh,
You
I
always
wish I.
bring this up.
Yeah, you always bring this up. You could even like, yeah, it's like because it'll be stuff that either happened in show or outside the show, basically, which is like really interesting to see
Yeah.
how they interact on that level. Broad City's so good. Like I love that show. I might have to rewatch it again just because.
Yeah.
But
I think one of my examples of recent media would probably be Jujutsu Kaisen between either
oh, I think I know you're going.
yeah, it's like either between Geto and Gojo or it's between Yuji and Toto, I think his name is.
Yeah,
Where
Yuji Toto. But I was
yeah,
thinking
he's
you're
like
also.
besto friendo and
He's
Jennifer
like, yeah, he's
Lawrence.
yeah, he's
Oh
like,
god, that was
what question did he ask him? He was like,
he asked him
he's like,
like
he's like,
who
who do you think's the hottest person in the world or
yeah,
something?
yeah. And then he's like Jennifer Lawrence. And the thing is, like, I think they were like fighting each other at the time. And he asked him the question, and then they both agree, and they like lock hands. They're like,
Best friend though.
yeah. And they initially became like they became like best friends in that moment because they shared the same understanding about like women and attractive to certain women. I just like that was the most ignorant like panel in a comic or ignorant like scene in an anime. But for some reason, I sat there and was like, yeah, that's like literally like a
It's
good
so
depiction.
plausible.
Yeah, it's like the highest level possible, and it's like a good depiction of like how men kind of like relate to each other. I'm just like, oh my god,
Almost, it's borderline an embarrassment. Borderline.
yeah, besto friendo, and it's hilarious. So many memes about that. But the other one is honestly like if you want to go deeper into that anime, the other one is like Ghetto and Gojo, which I mean you have to read a little bit further, but basically Ghetto becomes like the antagonist, Gojo is kind of like one of the protagonists, and like you see how their relationship began as like really really close friends, and then basically like one of them develops kind of like a different understanding of like reality and what they're doing, and then they kind of like clash, and then they kind of like gain a mutual understanding of like what happened and what's going on, and like they kind of reach some kind of middle ground, but at some point. But it's just an interesting depiction of like especially like male like masculine friendships, like it's kind of cool to see how they are depicted. And I don't know again if the author is like female or male. Like there have been theories of what um, gender they might be, but nobody knows at the moment because they're still anonymous.
Yeah, that when you bring up Ghetto and Gojo, that actually, because I haven't gotten that far, but the way you described it made me think of like Xavier and Magneto.
Yeah,
But like, yeah, that's always that their relationship is very fascinating because they're friends, but they're kind of completely opposed. I mean, they want the same thing. They're just different ideologies,
yeah,
which kind of clash with each other at times.
yeah.
But that's actually, yeah, conflict in friendship is actually a very interesting topic. I don't know how much I can say about it, but it is that. Oh, that's what it was. Conflict is it's a it's almost like a necessary evil in friendships, if that makes sense. At least from one book I read, it talked about how like a lot of people don't see that like on the other side of conflict is like built up intimacy. Like if you resolve it well, you become closer as friends and you build intimacy, and the friendship gets better and stronger.
Now the argument is that men probably don't have good conflict resolution skills, and so
Yeah,
that basically they end up like coming apart instead of like coming closer. You know what I mean? Like
yeah. Or they'll try to avoid the conflicts, or
yeah, or they're like bury it and just like kind of like turn a blind eye to conflict instead of like
yeah,
taking it on and like growing from it.
yeah. Actually, yeah. Whereas women, they'll probably, I'm theorizing, they'll I mean, because they're connected in so many different dimensions, um, they have conflicts and they may resolve it differently, or they have different resolution skills. And that, where am I going with that? Like, I guess that more likely leads to breakups between them. Like, they're more likely to engage in conflicts, but that also can potentially lead to a breaking of the friendship. Whereas guys, we avoid the conflicts and then we maintain the relationship.
Yeah, but also I guess it's again I feel like it's a double edged sword. It's like
Like
it
the
could
guy friendships can't grow. The women's friendships can grow, but they also risk breaking them.
yeah, it's
So
like a risk reward thing where it's like, hey, like
yeah,
men, like you're not risking anything, so there's no reward and you there's no further deepening of your relationship. Versus like for women, like there's a risk that you guys get into breaking up, but then there's also the risk that you guys or the gain that you can become more close to the person that you're friends with or whatever. Or close.
yeah. So
But interessante.
yeah, but building intimacy of friendships is a huge thing. There was like a whole like I should have written it down. There was like a whole breakdown of like how to build intimacy in friendships in one of the books I read, and it was kind of interesting. It kind of talked about how you need. I think trust was part of it. I don't know, but I think fundamentally it boils down to like just accepting the other person on some level, or well, fundamentally, but yeah, just accepting like that's the person I'm dealing with and accepting them for who they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember it was what the book said. It's been a while. I think I read that book like last year, so it's been a while.
Yeah. Also, I just want to put a disclaimer out for the internet nerds out there. If I, you know, I think his name was Toto from Jujutsu Kaisen. I feel like it could be Toto, but maybe I'm hoping I'm not like confusing it with that trash anime that I'm not going to mention. But anyway, um,
Todoroki in that anime.
I didn't say it. He did, but which is
Oh,
fine. Which is funny to me because I feel like that anime is basically based around friendship and like the strength of like the group rather than the strength of
yeah,
the individual.
it's just I don't know. It's depicted in such a basic way where it's kind of hard to respect that anime.
Honestly, I hate that anime trope. Like, I'm sorry to go off on a little bit of a tangent. I hate that anime trope of like, oh yeah, we know like our strength of our friendship by basically how strong we clash with each other. I'm just like how strong their fists are. I can understand like their will through their fists. And I'm like, bro. Really?
Yeah,
I hate that. It's such a pirate trope. I'm like, please
yeah,
retire this.
yeah. It's so bad.
Like, you don't
Even
actually
when you
spend
look
the
at,
time getting to know somebody. You just fight with them.
yeah, it's like that's all they did. All they did was fight. I mean, I think to reference a better version of that, and probably not the best version, but a better version was like Naruto, how they depicted different friendships and stuff. Like there was Kakashi and Guy, they had their little rivalry.
Yep.
Um,
Sasuke and Naruto.
Sasuke and Naruto. I almost said Madara and Hashirama. Well, no, not Hashirama. What was the first Hokage's name? Yeah, wasn't he
I think it
Hashirama?
was Hashirama, right?
Yeah,
That
yeah.
wasn't the
But
brother who
they
hated
were
him.
they were kind of rivals to the death, so they weren't that. We're gonna strike from the record.
But I'm
But
like,
yeah,
weren't they friends at some point? I thought they were friends at some point, and then maybe his brother I thought
they
hated.
did found the village together, so maybe they. I don't know.
Yeah, I thought something soured between them. I can't remember what it was, but
Or even like, I mean, there's so many different friendships in that show, or like Orochimaru and Jiraiya and Tsunade, and
yeah,
yeah, that show that did a pretty good job. I would say it did the best job. It did a pretty good job of depicting like friendships and stuff, and especially with Naruto and Sasuke, how it was a little hard to believe. Like Naruto was that gung ho about Sasuke. I'm just like Naruto, why do you really care so much? Like,
I mean, I kind of get it. I mean, he grew up an orphan, no parents. Like, he had no friends. He was like socially isolated in school. Nobody wanted to hang out with him. I don't know why specifically it's Sasuke. Maybe it's because Sasuke was also kind of like orphan to a degree, I guess.
yeah,
But yeah, other than that, I'm like, why did you pick him of all people? You could
yeah.
have formed that bond with like Sakura. You could have formed that bond with like any other student in that
What
class.
was that? Neji, even because he at least didn't abandon the village. Like,
Yeah, exactly. There's so many other
oh
people that I'm like, bro, like, why are you still? I mean, hooked on it. I get it, like the time spent, and that you guys were a very close knit team, and that you worked on like missions to the death. Sometimes I get it, but
yeah,
that's trauma bonding, bro.
yeah. If but the depiction felt a little forced on some level.
Yeah,
Yeah, but like Hunter x Hunter, the relationship between Killua and Gon, it's just hilarious how like simply it started. I think they started at the beginning of the Hunter exam. They just meet and they're like, "Oh, another kid is here," and he's like, "Can I try your skateboard?" And he tries it and does a kick flip or something. Like, that's so cool. They're like instantly friends.
what?
But it's hilarious because like they really they really complemented each other really well as characters in the show, and like as characters, like they were very similar in that they were both super talented but kind of like in their own ways. I
Yeah,
almost wonder how Gon even kept up with Killua, because like yeah, sure, Gon was like he lived on, grew up wherever he grew up, but like Killua was kind of trained like
a trained
you know
assassin.
yeah, trained assassin. Like he was, I think he was way stronger than Gon when they met, because like he could open the gate of whatever that his family had, but Gon needed help from Kurapika and the Oreo just to open the gate after training and stuff. So
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting. Again, I didn't like read all the manga, and I haven't watched all the anime, but at least the scenes I have watched, it seems like kind of like later in like the anime, I guess it seems like they kind of grew closer to each other's perspective. Where like Killer was a trained assassin, but he kind of learned like a little bit more empathy, specifically around the time that like Don's about to do something real dark,
oh yeah.
and he's like, "Yo, bro," he's like, "You don't want to do this," and he's like, "No, no, I'm gonna do it."
Yeah, yeah.
And it's just like,
It's like
ooh,
they both had their. It's like Killer was like calm, cool, and when he crashes out, he's like calm and cool about it. Gon's like the ultimate crash out that goes ham,
yeah, exactly. And it's just like, ooh, like,
and they like keep each other in check.
yeah,
I just love how like they really they depicted how intuitively they understood each other really well. Um, that's what I kind of really liked about that, and that's also like even going back to like Broad City or other shows, when two characters like each other understand each other, like on a super intuitive level, but it's so like I don't want to. I guess subtle is the right word, but like you can tell, like if you really look at it, it's like yeah, they really understand each other, even though they don't have to like shove it down your throat that these characters understand each other. You know?
Yep.
Yeah, I always find that super interesting to see. It's like it's always a fun watch. Um, let me see. All right, let me see. Whatever. Let's see. I mean that's I guess that also kind of ties into like even when friendships are formed, like in anime and stuff, like the Jujutsu Kaisen example, how they just like it's like they both said Jennifer Lawrence. It's like, oh yeah, you said Jennifer Lawrence, yeah, you get me. It's like,
That is the acceptance, the ultimate
yeah,
acceptance,
yeah.
the best of
So
friendo.
best friend. Yeah,
Oh my
yeah,
god, it's so ignorant.
yeah.
It's
It's
so
super ignorant.
accurate.
But let's see. Um, I don't know. This is a super. I love the concept of friendship. I love how it's depicted, but I'm trying to see. Is there anything huge we can go into topic wise?
Hmm.
Or you think we could probably wrap it up there?
Yeah, I think we can probably wrap it up there. I think it was
Yeah,
a good episode, good topics.
there's tons to say about it, but like it's just I'm just a sucker for it, so I love talking about it. And like yeah, it's like I would had if I had any like like this is what you should take away from this episode. Um, look at all your relationships, your friendships, and just try to see where the acceptance is, if, or even going forward, if you think you could form new friendships, relationships, try to base them on acceptance versus like similarity and differences. Just accepting the other person is huge because you could be similar in one way, but dissimilar in every other way, and it's like, well, yeah, I don't know, it just might not be enough. So, all right, well, Cowboy, that anything else you want to closing remarks you want to make?
No, no, that's pretty much about it.
All right. Oh gosh, I don't know how long this has been, but this is an episode of Concept of Podcast. I'm Apex Dova. You can find me on all kinds of socials, but probably not going to follow you back. But
Wow.
we
On
will
the
have an
Friendship
email.
Podcast, folks. On the Friendship Podcast.
Hey, okay. So there's one last thing I'll say about that. Like, there is the idea that like you can only maintain so many close friendships in your life, So I think I'm like saturated. I got all the close friends I need at the moment. But I'm willing to make other connections. So
You know what? If you want to follow me on my medias, feel free to follow me. If you want to play games with me, if we play the same game, feel free to play games or reach out. I'll probably play with you eventually.
yeah,
Um,
wow. Eventually,
but if I
don't
messed
think
up
I
that
didn't.
character's name, don't at me.
I don't think they didn't clock that. Eventually.
Yeah, yeah, and don't at me for the shade on a certain anime that I think is trash either. And I stand by
Yeah.
that certain anime manga that's trash, and don't at me on that.
Oh gosh, it's so bad.
It's so
All
trash.
right. We could probably continue it. We could go into this, and maybe we'll reference this back later after feedback. But I think the email is conceptofapodcast@gmail.com.
Yep.
All one word. And then we'll be on YouTube, Spotify. And this is the fourth episode, so this is part of our like initial pilot series. We're releasing four episodes at first to start, and then once they've been out for a little bit, we'll work on releasing more. We have a bunch of other topics planned, so I'm Apex Silva, and that's Cowboy Bebop Crew. Sayonara. All right, 3, 2, 1, we're out of here. Stop.
44 minutes and